Hey everybody, welcome back to the PetaPixel podcast. If you're listening, I want my friends to introduce themselves. Say hi, Chris Nichols, my good friend.
You just introduced me. Anyways, yes, hi, I'm Chris Nichols.
Yeah, there we go. You got to hear his voice. And who's that over there? It's Jaron Schneider. Say hi, Jaron.
You just introduced him again.
No, didn't do that either. There we go. So that's what their voices sound like. If you're watching on YouTube, you've already seen their faces. How cool is that? So guys, I always like to kick things off with a question. You know that. So I got one for you here. It might be a little tricky.
Oh.
They come to you and they're like, all right, we want you to take over our camera company. You are president, and it's more of like a dictatorship. You can have far overreaching powers. You don't respond to the board. Who are you going to choose? Which of the major camera companies do you think needs your perfect touch?
I don't know. Go, Jaron.
Canon? I'm taking Canon. Well, okay, so I guess because despite what people think of me, which is they think, he hates Canon. Why does he even talk about it? I love Canon. I've always loved Canon, and I grew up on Canon, and I want Canon to excel beyond my expectations. So I feel like I'd be the best leader for that company, actually.
Yeah, you have love for the brand. You want to see it thrive.
I want to see it
strong
succeed.
Opinions.
I want people to love Canon again. I remember back when people loved Canon, and there was nothing but good things to say. And you know what? I think it's time to return to that. Put me in charge of the company. I can make those decisions. I know exactly what I would do. First thing I would do is open to third-party lenses unequivocally. But besides that, there are other things that I would want to do where I could. That's it for me. Canon.
If you were in charge, they never would have pre-pitched the R5 as a video camera, and then when it actually got announced, all anyone talked about is overheating instead of it being an amazing photo camera. Things like that, you would have nipped in the bud. Yeah,
I would have probably been like, this is a photo camera with video capabilities, and then when they fixed those overheating issues like a month later, then I could pitch that as we've improved it. Now it's a video
second
camera.
wave of PR. Now it's a great video. Oh,
see how this works? I can do this. Hire me. No, don't hire me. I like what I do.
Yeah, Chris?
Oh, I would want to take over Pentax. And then,
you could have some impact.
Dude, and I would just first off, I'd make mirrorless lenses. I would demand that we use the heritage of the Pentax Corporation to release a whole series of analog style cameras. Film, great. Digital, absolutely. So digital mirrorless cameras, digital K1000s, digital ME Supers, and I would just become the niche analog / digital but cool retro brand.
The DSLR company.
Yeah, the DSLRs. Yeah, sure.
So
DSLRs,
you would bail on their current plan, which is DSLRs.
I think keeping the DSLRs, but it would be very much a niche product, we're the last ones that make cool DSLRs, that make cool mirrorless cameras, that make cool, inspired cameras from our past. I think it'd be awesome. And start making lenses in something other than DSLR mount.
Yeah, I think they should be making lenses for other people. I think that's really smart. Okay, so Jaron stole mine, which was going to be Canon. So I'm going to curve hard. You know what? I think Nikon would be a lot of fun to be in charge of right now. There's so much enthusiasm going on. They've made a lot of smart turns, but they're also moving more into magical cinema land with the acquisition of Red. And I could help steer that shuttle in a direction that would work specifically. Who knows if it'll work on set on major productions, but for me, YouTube, and man, I'd have some opinions on how to really do that well. I do think they're one of the few brands that understands their heritage and is doing really cool modern things. So I would want to lean into the retro a little bit as well, Chris. I think bring back some AI designs.
Red should make a hybrid camera for YouTuber content.
They probably. Nikon probably will.
I mean, if you ask MKBHD, all Red cameras are YouTube cameras.
Yeah, that's right.
That's too much. Yeah, with your crew of 10.
Guys, we've got a pretty cool show today. First of all, we've got an exciting new camera announcement from Leica. We can't wait to get into that, right, guys?
Yes.
But as well, we've just dropped our video on the GF 500 mil. So we want to talk about, medium format for wildlife. It's something it's never really been known for, but it's becoming a lot more possible now. We want to talk about that a little bit. And YouTube scandal rocked the internet this week with Gerald Undon's recent video. We're going to talk about ethics on YouTube as well. So it's going to be a full show with strong opinions. Let's get an intro going.
All right, guys, welcome back. So if you're passionate about photography and considering upgrade, or if you've been eyeing the OM1 Mark II, which is one of my personal favorites, don't miss this fantastic offer from OM System. It's the perfect time to exchange your old equipment for the cutting-edge technology and outstanding image quality of OM System. So it's this new trade-in, trade-up event. We love this when OM System does this. They've actually been very successful in the past. This is happening throughout May and June, and you actually enjoy really significant savings. So this is what you need to know. You take your qualified interchangeable lens camera to a participating dealer for an evaluation. The camera store here in Calgary, locally, for example, has been fantastic. You'll receive the value of your trade-in, plus additional rebates and offers on select products, increasing your savings even more. Plus, you'll receive a trade-up bonus towards the purchase of select OM System products, making this an ideal opportunity to upgrade. So, OM1 Mark II. Combined with the M Zuiko 100 to 400 mil lens, you could save $600 on that package. Yeah, and you'd be set for telephoto wildlife, birding photography. This bundle is now just $27.99.99 US. That's a significant drop from its regular price thanks to its limited time promotion. Additionally, you could take advantage of reduced prices in other lens bundles. $200 off the M Zuiko 90mm 3.5 macro. Great for macro enthusiasts. Enjoy $200 discount on the Zuiko 40 to 150 f2.8. That is an awesome lens.
Good lens.
Excellent for wildlife photography. Or take $300 off the M Zuiko 8 to 25 f4 Pro lens. For those that want to, you love that.
That's the one I just keep monologuing about every week. What a great lens.
So, if you're a wildlife photographer, sports photographer, portrait photographer, macro, landscape, OM System has you covered with a fantastic deal. This is a great time to do it. So take your stuff in, upgrade it, get the latest weather sealed OM System products. These are only valid until the end of June, so you got to act fast. Visit your nearest authorized OM System dealer, or check out www.explore.com. No, that's wrong. Anyways, the link's there.
What happened to Chris?
I don't know. I'm losing it. explore.omsystem.com/PetaPixel. That's our
nicely done.
Got it out.
Thank you for that, Chris.
I'm so sorry.
That might be the first time that we have actually summarized everything we're going to talk about in the intro, because that is everything. There's only three main things we're going to talk about today,
but we're going to give all of them some time.
Yeah, new Leica camera.
Time.
Yeah, so we're going to do, this is the order. New Leica camera. We're going to talk about YouTube ethics, and then we're going to talk about Fujifilm GF telephoto greatness or whatever. I don't know. You liked it. It was great. You said the lens was fantastic. At any rate, let's start with this new Leica camera, which is called the D-Lux 8. It's the 8th generation of this camera.
Yes.
And it is coming almost 6 years after the D-Lux 7 hit the shelves, and it looks awfully familiar.
In fact, it looks almost identical, which is not a bad thing. I mean, it was such a beautiful camera design originally. And that really was kind of a golden era where you had cameras like the LX100, you had the D-Lux cameras, the RX100 cameras. Like, it was a really cool time with high-end point-and-shoot cameras that had actually quite bright lenses, nice manual controls. And it was a market that did really well, and then it kind of petered out, right? I mean, the modern mirrorless cameras got smaller and lighter. People wanted the better image quality. They wanted the lower price tag, frankly, on the interchangeable kits. And so that's kind of where it went. And now it's back. And I think that's a fairly smart idea, actually.
Yeah, we were actually talking to Panasonic recently on the press event. Like, LX100s are basically going for what they were retail half a decade ago. And then the same thing with, like the GM series bodies. There's clearly a demand for that. And what's really interesting about this camera is it is a big chip. Like, it's got a 4/3 size sensor in it. Now, the lens doesn't cover that entire area, is what we recall from before. But you're still getting, with that crop, a 24 to 70 equivalent bright lens. We loved that camera. And I do think if they just re-released the D-Lux 7, then it would do really well, at the same price. But I can understand what Leica's doing here. They've changed the control interface so it's more in line with like the M11, the Q3. So you can have a whole family of similar, reduced buttons and controls on the body, more emphasis on the touchscreen, a little more consistency.
Now, it is the exact same sensor and the exact same lens setup as we saw in the D-Lux 7. And I know from a 6-year-old camera, the initial thought would be, oh, well, that's unfair, right? Like, can't we get an upgraded chip, blah, blah, blah. But the fact is, I don't think those chips have really been upgraded that much. I mean, it's all the large sensors that have taken off. And at the same time, people want that classic look, right? I mean, the whole crowd that's into these cameras wants that point and shoot aesthetic. So in a way, this is what we've been telling companies to do, and now they're doing it. So we can't really complain about it. We were saying, re-release those point and shoots. Like, this is the market. And so maybe we'll see other companies start to do that, because trying to get an older D-Lux 6 or 7 or something, it's like very difficult, right? And the prices are stupid ridiculous. So why not get something that's brand new, has warranty? And that's a nice thing on Leica's part, is that they're actually making a commitment to say, look, we're going to continue to keep parts for this product and we're going to be able to repair it for you, blah, blah, blah. So I think it's a very interesting idea. It is Leica. So it's not like we're going to have millions of people pouring out to buy these things. They are still pricey cameras, but for what Leica does in their niche community, I think it's a very smart move.
Yeah, my big question when I was poring over the specs for this thing to answer something, which is they have to use their new Maestro processor because this has their new interface on it. Is that also going to offset some of the limitations we saw before? Because if you remember back with the LX100 II, the D-Lux 7, if you switch to 4K recording, it would apply a massive 1.4 crop to use the central 8 megapixels. For recording that, now we've got a better processor. Is that going to alleviate some of that? Because I always looked at the LX100 as like the king of B-roll cameras and time-lapse cameras, things like that. I really loved that lens and that design for that kind of work.
Back then,
so if it's more functional, then that's pretty cool.
Yeah, or, we could just worry about photos because that's what's cool and fun. And so the photography part of it looks like it's going to be basically the same, but nice controls, nice new menu systems. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they do change things in the processor. Right now, all we know is mostly hardware seems to be very similar, but processing magic always has a part to play. So
my question for our listeners and viewers is this something you think would be worth us re-reviewing to put it in context of what's available right now? Right. Or should you run back and watch our DP review, LX100 review from a long time ago? That's what I'm curious. Let us know in the comments if that's something you'd be interested in.
Yeah, it is odd since it's so similar, but as you say, there might be differences, especially with the interface. I'm curious what people think of the price. $1,595, so effectively $1,600.
It's a lot.
X100 price, basically, which is exactly what they think they're trying to do.
You can buy this, though.
That's right.
Can't buy the X100
Again, I think this is still the classic Leica niche product, right? I mean, that's why I say this isn't a camera for everybody, I don't think. It is really going to be still classic Leica users that want that look and that prestige. So I hope what this really does is start to like inspire the other companies to maybe re-release some of their products or make similar products, but at more affordable price points for the rest of us.
I want to propose maybe like a bet or a prediction or something like that. I predict that in May 2026, so I'm going to put this in my calendar, we are going to see an absolute deluge of all of these high-end point and shoot cameras, because they've all seen the demand now. They've started their R&D at this point. 2 years, 2026, by which point I predict also this will be far less popular and less trendy by that point.
Yeah, I know.
It'll be like, remember we all wanted vlog cameras like 8 years ago when vlogging was super cool?
I never wanted
No. Like the prime Casey Neistat era of the vlogging. And then all the cameras came out 4 years later after everybody had already moved on from that aesthetic. So I predict something here. I'm putting... Yeah.
I think they should really rehash older designs. I mean, that's basically what Leica's doing. I mean, and that doesn't take much R&D, and they should do it like right now.
Did either of you mention that this is also not unique to Leica? Like this is
an LX100 too. Yeah.
It's
functionally.
Panasonic could do this tomorrow.
Yeah, they won't, I don't think, because like
Sony could do it tomorrow too. Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't. Yeah.
Apparently, that's
when the RX 100s were always popular cameras, and then when like the RX1, like that it went away. It's funny, not many people bought it. Admittedly, it was very expensive.
It's
not
very
many people
expensive.
bought it. Very expensive. But then when it went away, everybody's like, "Oh, damn, that was my chance. I really want one now." Like it was funny. The whole industry was like, "Oh, I should have got one. Like I'm really missing it now."
I think this is at least my take. There is a difference between this camera, this D-Lux 8, the X100 and an RX 100 series camera. Not the RX 1, I agree. That one is in the same ballpark as the ones but I don't think the RX 100 series is actually that desirable. It's not the same thing.
It doesn't have the cachet. They're very functional. They're good for some stuff.
I don't think it takes the same type of picture. It doesn't give you the same type of experience. I'm curious also if people like the fact that this is a zoom lens. Maybe people like that. I don't necessarily want the zoom lens. I liked to have the fixed lens. Even if it was interchangeable, that's fine. I kind of like primes though. That's what made this kind of neat. Yeah. That's why I'm not super. I love the way this camera looks, by the way. I think it looks really cool. It's probably a lot of fun to shoot. It just doesn't, to me, do the same thing. This sounds so pretentious. I'm so sorry.
I saw that one guy in Higashiyama rocking an LX100 Mark II. And right there and then I was like, whatever you ask me to do, I'll do it for you. I'll kill whoever you want. You're the greatest human that ever lived. So, yeah, I'm, like it has that kind of draw. Why are you looking at me like that?
Because that was strong.
That's quite a statement. Yes. Yeah. The one other thing, we all know Leica has very limited production capabilities. I think this is going to be hard to get your hands on as well. I think it's going to do far better than the LX D-Lux.
Maybe everybody likes it that way. Maybe everybody likes it that way. Maybe they're taking a book from Fuji and they're like, wow, let's make these things as prestigious and hard to get as possible. And people will eat them up.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't disagree.
All right. Well, that was really the only newsworthy thing that came out last week, other than some YouTube drama. I'm going to say it on purpose.
Drama.
Yeah. Specifically around the S9 event is what really started this. So I want to go last on this. I'm going to let you guys have your say. I think people have. I'm not just think. I know people have asked for your response to this. Like, what do you guys think? We're not going to do a standalone video. The podcast, I think, is the best format.
It's a great way to talk about it. Yeah. So and have a discussion and then get feedback from the viewers. So I guess to give some context first, I mean, Gerald Dundon is a Canadian YouTuber. He does very in-depth stuff. I mean, I guess the stuff you have to realize about Gerald is he's very thoughtful. He's very thorough with his testing. I mean, he absolutely does know what he's doing and he knows the technology. And we've had a relationship with Gerald for many, many years, right? Not only being Canadian, but also, kind of just seeing him come up in the world and whatnot.
Yeah, we've hung out and everything like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and we have a personal relationship with him. So, this video, to give context, I thought was actually very thoughtfully done. I mean, it's not that I agree with everything Gerald's saying, but I get where he's coming from, and he certainly did put a lot of effort into making it as eloquent as he could. But basically, Gerald is saying he doesn't feel like the current state of how cameras are reviewed and how products are looked at as far as going on manufacturer trips, dealing with embargoes. He doesn't feel it's the right way to approach things. And he did very clearly say that he thinks, as much as he wants to say like everybody's allowed to do their own thing, he's like, I really think we should stop doing things the way that we're doing it. So, and that's where we have some disagreements, right? But he also went into a lot of the nuances about dealing with different manufacturers. He did straight up call some manufacturers out, but he talked about his personal relationship with specific companies, how they deal with allocating gear, how they deal with press trips, all that kind of stuff. And so it certainly has stirred up quite a poop storm. Not just amongst listeners and viewers, but also amongst his fellow YouTubers, some who feel like they've been called out inappropriately, or some who are getting lots of flack now from commenters, like calling them sellouts or whatever. And so, and he said many times, like, that wasn't my intention, but the fact of the matter is that's still what happened, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, one point I really want to make is and I had to reframe this in my mind, so much of this video is directed at up and coming YouTubers,
Yes.
camera reviewers, because that was something we noticed immediately on this event is like, there's we even talked about it on the podcast. I was like, it's great to see a bunch of new faces, not the same people who have been there
Yes.
for a very long time. And I would say there was kind of a little bit of a split on the reaction to the camera between like the general public and that initial wave of videos that came out. I think that's fair to say as well. A lot of the people on the trip were more complimentary than the people on the forums and whatnot.
And it's an interesting dynamic. I mean, going to these press trips, and we'll talk about this a bit further. Gerald did talk about how they're an opportunity to see your old friends, to hang out. That is to some degree true. Absolutely. I mean, that is one of the real nice things about these trips is that we see a lot of the people. In many cases, this is the only opportunity we do get to see them face to face, right? So that is a great thing. And, it's like on this trip is a great example. We're old men, right? We're the old crowd, and we got to run into Kai and Locke and hang out with them, and Gordon Lang and Ted Forbes and the Brownstones. I mean, these are examples of people who've been in the YouTube game for a long time, and we've been through all the pitfalls, and we've done a lot of events, and the dynamic has to some degree changed, but you have to let new people in. Absolutely. Right. I mean, people are growing up with watching our videos. Now they're making their own. That's an amazing thing to see happen. And so a lot of these young creators do want to get their foot in the door. They want to start, building their base. And so I think first off, it's great that Panasonic is bringing them out to these events to do that. It also makes a lot of sense for this particular camera, the S9, which is aimed at that sort of younger creator crowd that want to get started, right? At the same time, Panasonic does still invite us out there, and it makes sense because even though they know, and they said to us like, we know what you guys are going to say about this camera. We know it's not really for you guys specifically, but it's still important to get the message across on these cameras. So I don't know. I think.
Well, here's the thing. I guess I'll point this out since you just touched on it. That is exactly the reason that it was stated that some people weren't invited. Is that it wasn't for them.
It's not the camera for them. It's not for your audience, the way that you test, things like that.
But you just said it's not, and I would say you guys would agree, it is not a camera for either of you. And yet you were there and still did a preview for it. So that's where I take issue with that stance, because it's obviously not true. If there, then I'll go into it on my turn, but I just wanted to at least call attention to that now.
100%. Yeah.
But I do think it's also these are like Gerald specifically. What he's famous for is doing like a lot of detailed testing, overheating testing that's very controlled, shooting Xyla charts to figure out dynamic range measurements and things like that, which is not something that he would have access to be able to do on a short press trip on that.
And he says he wouldn't have done it anyway.
Yeah,
he says if he was invited and did go, he wouldn't have done a video anyway.
At embargo.
At embargo.
I think we should address that. I mean, like a lot of the questions come up about disclosure. We try to disclose it. Honestly, we don't always remember to do so because we kind of assume now that people know we've been on these events for over a decade. We try to disclose it. But a lot of things come up about the event biasing people, whining and dining you and that kind of stuff. And so I think we should talk about that. Like, yes, it's nice that they pay our airfare. They fly us out to these great locations. And then when they're there, they want to show us a good time. Absolutely. Right. I mean, and the events have changed. All the manufacturers do slightly different things, but generally speaking, obviously hotels, meals, that's all covered. But to me, that's logistics, right? I mean, you have to do it. If you're going to invite people out to these events, you got to take care of them. That's been going on for decades and decades in every single industry that sells products. Right?
That's a key thing. This is not, it was targeted as specifically like camera review YouTube. That is definitely, the case we always hear about automotive launches.
Yeah, I was going to say the car ones that I've heard about that still happen to this day are outrageous.
At the same time, I think it's really important to understand that all the manufacturers' marketing teams have different ideas and change their strategies about who they want to invite, why they want to invite those particular people, what kind of event they want to put on. Some events we would go to, they were very structured. It's like, okay, 8 o'clock we're here, then 12 o'clock, then 1:30, then 5:30, right? And then gradually over time, a lot of those marketing teams, I felt, especially with us, and when we worked with Camera Store and Deep Review, we're like, hey guys, we understand you need different kinds of outlets. You need more time to do certain things. You need more time to maybe explore on your own. And they were very accommodating about that. And I feel like a lot of the events have become less structured and more More like do your thing, have fun with it. Let us know if you have questions. And that really helped free us up to get our work done. I would also say this. I mean, Gerald did talk about how when he goes on these events, he just wants to hang out with friends, relax, talk shop, and he'll make a video later. And that's never really been our approach. And I'm not calling out, a lot of creators do their videos back at home, and a lot of creators shoot from a studio. I can only talk about our particular experience where we like to shoot in the field. That's always been our thing. And shooting in the field, when we go to these events, we see it as a wonderful opportunity that we're grateful for, but we also work our asses off. Like Jordan and I work our asses off. We don't sleep. We get up early. We go out and shoot. A lot of other YouTubers are like, oh, you guys are going out again to work? Like, yeah, we got to get talking points done, and we got to go shoot night stuff. And beyond that too, as videographers and photographer, we shoot in the field because we like to actually shoot photos and make beautiful video. So when we're there as well, we eat that stuff up as an opportunity to shoot in a location that's not Calgary downtown, right? Not only for our sake,
or right where you're sitting right now.
Yeah.
And the viewers clearly respond to this. A lot of the time, it's not just that it's at a product launch, but historically, even years after a camera comes out, those launch videos in a new location tend to do better. I just want to double back to one thing you said there, Chris, which is that we like to go off on our own. Another major reason for this, manufacturers are not going to set up a shoot where their camera's going to struggle. They're going to look specifically at like, how can we, set something up so that it's going to be in its optical. There have been exceptions for sure. But these are great because we can actually shoot them in we try to do like a wide variety, indoor, outdoor, see where those limitations are. And that's information you might not get, if you stick with what's been pre-planned.
Yeah. I mean, when we got there, to just keep it open to the viewers and give you guys an idea of how it works, like, we have to remember, we know a lot of these reps and executives and engineers and have known them for a long time, right? I mean, there's a lot of human relationship going on there, to the point where we consider some of these people our friends or very close, like acquaintances, and we feel like we can ask them stuff. We feel like we can give them the gears on stuff. And when we got there right off the bat, we're like, we talked to them and like, look, we understand this isn't really a camera for you guys. We know what you're going to say about it. We know what you're going to feel about it already. And they didn't say anything beyond that. Like, they didn't even say like, oh, try to like, mold it in a different way, or like, they didn't tell us anything about how we should do the review. So then I was like, well, okay, I'm going to do my best to look at this camera from a different standpoint than how I would personally want a camera myself. All camera reviewers are biased, but not biased by, I don't think Jordan and I are biased by events. I don't think we're biased by sponsorships even. I mean, we do a really good job of trying to separate those two. We review cameras now the same way we did 15 years ago when we had absolutely no stake in the game. What we are biased to, though, is, of course, what we like to shoot, what lenses we like, what menus we like, what cameras we like, what our personal preferences are. And that's why you guys watch us, because you either appreciate those biases we have, or you understand them and can look past them, right? So I really did try to approach this camera from who would it be for? How can I have fun with it? And I did find a way to actually have a lot of fun with the S9. I think I said that in the video quite a bit. But on these events, it's a lot of hard work. Gerald was really against getting things out for embargo, and I don't agree with that. I think there's a lot of value in getting those first looks, and we understand that's why we call these impressions. We don't call them reviews. Absolutely not. But at the same time, we put in a lot of effort to test that camera as much as we can in that short amount of time, and say only things that we're sure that we can say about that camera with the experience we've had. And of course, down the line, we then do full reviews and we look at things more in depth and we take harder looks at it. But I do think there's value in getting that out. And me as a consumer, if I'm looking at products like fishing rods, for example, I appreciate the early looks and I appreciate the new stuff and the teasers. And I take the responsibility as a viewer and as a consumer to then understand, these are early impressions. I'm going to want to look at this later on, but I still want to have that excitement of that information at the start.
I think this goes back to when we worked at the camera store. We've seen a huge shift in how people purchase cameras. Like, you think of massive cameras like, Nikon D700s, Canon 5D Mark IIs. Even those, it wasn't a huge, we're pre-selling it on the day of announcement. It was like, wait for stock to come in, people play with it at the store, pick it up at that point. That's changed dramatically. Like the X106 is the perfect example of this. everybody is now putting their name on a wait list for months, who knows, years at this point. We have no idea. And those initial impressions, letting you know what the camera excels at and what its limitations are going to be very important to those people. We're not going to call it a full review because we still want the ability to run some more tests. If we have questions, talk to the manufacturers, see if, are we doing something wrong, or is this, a legitimate concern, all that kind of stuff for the full reviews. But I still think these press events are very useful for just figuring out that vague concept of, is this something I might be interested in? And if you're about to pull the trigger on a pre-order, just find out, are there any things you might have missed?
Exactly. And really it's about finding, is this the camera for me? Right. Absolutely. I do want to talk about the relationship with the manufacturers, to some degree. I mean, yes, there's no question that, of course, what the manufacturer is doing is spending a lot of cash and a lot of time and a lot of effort to market their products. I mean, I don't think that's even a bad thing. I mean, that's an understanding that we've had for decades. That's nothing new. And so when they invite us on these trips, I really do try to approach it from, I'm going to be respectful about it. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to try my best to make a product for us, for our viewers, but also that shows their product, right? And not in an amazing light. I mean, Jordan and I we always call it like camera jail, right? We've been in manufacturer jail with some of these manufacturers many times.
There have been
said things that they don't like.
Consequences. Yeah.
Absolutely. These are human beings. I mean, and every Japanese company has a different mindset and a different kind of way of thinking and sense of humor, all this kind of stuff. I mean, we have offended certain people. We have upset certain people. We have said things that some manufacturers don't like. There's also been, miscommunication, or there's been misunderstandings.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a human relationship. Things happen. And so, it's not all rosy. It's not like they're like, oh, Chris and Jordan, we love you guys so much, blah, blah, blah. Come on. It's a nuanced relationship, and it is a give and take relationship. And I think that's perfectly normal. I don't think that's something to criticize. I think as long as you still remain true to what you're going to say about the product, then that's how it is, right? Yeah, it's nice to go to these locations, see these places, but at the same time, we're there to work, we're there to do our job. And I think Jordan and I built up a very strong relationship and reputation over many years. So the manufacturers understand that, we know you're honest. We've had manufacturers straight up say, look, we want you to say what you're going to say. That's why you're here. And if we're not invited to events, and there's plenty of events that we have not been invited to, then that's fine. We accept it. That, for whatever reason, whether they didn't feel it was appropriate for us, or they don't like us at the time, or we upset them about something, fine. That's the way it is.
So we mentioned the younger, newer generation coming up that I think Gerald's video was largely directed at. I mean, if this is the first time you've had access to gear before launch and, a trip to a place that you've never been before, all that kind of stuff, I absolutely understand, oh man, I want to do this again. This is great. Chris and I have been doing this for a very long time. And I mean, we've had, like he mentioned, periods where we're in camera jail, where we're not getting access to manufacturer's products for a little while. The thing is, they always come back because they know in that case, maybe they were right about that camera, or there was some misunderstanding or something like that. But inevitably, our opinion seems to be valued in this because we have a lot of experience at it, and a press trip doesn't swing our opinion in the same way it might for someone who's just getting started and this is their first big step and they don't want to blow it by pissing off the company who gave them the opportunity to do that. That's less of an issue with us. And again, some of those old guard that we were talking to as well. Now, that's not to say all the, smaller channels that came there went and just did, wishy-washy, kiss up to the camera. It was a huge variety, but there were definitely some that were completely complimentary to the camera. And I think that's where some of this concern came from.
I think he did a very good job of for me, the video was on the rails, and he's like, look, if you're a new YouTube creator, be careful about how you approach things and how you carry yourself. And I think that's absolutely very good stuff. That should really be in the conversation. But then it kind of went off the rails with like, which is why we shouldn't do it anymore. Nobody should do it and the manufacturers shouldn't do it. I'm like, well, I don't agree with that part, right? So I do think there's value there. I think it makes sense from a marketing standpoint. It makes sense for us, for our content. We want to make stuff that's so good that it can't be ignored, by the manufacturers. But at the same time, yes, how you carry yourself on these events is very important. All I can say is, Jordan, I've always tried to make it so that we're going to honestly say what we say, and hopefully it'll be interesting and poignant and informative enough that people will watch that and we'll get those views, and we'll get that sort of feedback that it's exactly what the viewers want or close to what they want, and that the manufacturers have to say, look, yeah, these guys are doing a great job and people like it, and so let's keep bringing them back. So that's how we've always approached it.
I want to say there is a high likelihood that people who watch this podcast and this channel because of you guys have no idea my history here, like how long I've been doing it. I haven't been doing it as long.
That's why I ask questions at the start of every episode, Jared, so they can learn more about you.
You've been on a lot of events with us.
Yeah. I wouldn't have been able to know to hire Chris and Jordan if I wasn't on these events with them, to see them, as they say in their own words, and I agree, working their asses off to make good content. It was so impressive to me. That's why I wanted to hire them. I haven't even been doing this as long as they have. I've been doing it for 12 years, and you guys have been doing it for 15 or 16 now.
15,
but I have had the opportunity to do it for a wide variety of companies. I think I've worked for more companies than these guys have. And I've done it for companies that were brand spanking new with no history, those who have been around for a very long time and have tons of history. So I was at F-Stoppers. That's where I got my start. That's where I created an editorial vision. F-Stoppers was a loosely coordinated blog from two dudes who made a viral video. That's where it started. And it eventually became something more before, and then there was a bunch of turnover and everyone left, that sort of thing. And then I went to Imaging Resource and Resource Magazine. But Resource Magazine was another small one with almost no readership or following. But I had a relationship with companies and I was able to do that. And then Imaging Resource is super old. I wasn't even using my own relationships at that point. I was working with Dave Eschels, who had one who's as old as DP Review was. So I've seen everything, and I guess what I want to do here, because I had a hard time getting my thoughts together because there was so much going on. I wrote some stuff down, so pardon me if this is scripted, but I saw Gerald.
But it literally is scripted.
Yeah, Gerald had a piece of paper in front of him, so he had notes too, because there's a lot to cover. So here's what I'm going to say, and then if you have anything to add to this, guys, please do. I think it's reasonable to wonder about a company's motivations when it comes to press trips, and I feel like we've touched on that topic before. I feel like this is not a new conversation. I've seen some conversation that has come up where it's finally someone says something. This is not the first time someone has said something, even in the camera industry. It has been said before. That's why it's important to us when doing an actual review of something that we test it outside the scenarios a company constructs and do real world stuff, which is what Chris and Jordan are very good at. Yeah, companies will try and cultivate good press. You have to look at this from the perspective of, we are doing reviews and doing things for the purposes of providing information, but these companies are doing it for marketing purposes because they need to make money. So there is a balance there. I find the relationship with camera brands to be very simple. Review equipment honestly, say the truth, ask questions, verify your results, and have an open line of communication. And no matter what you find in the end, if you have done all of those things, you'll be in a good position. The problems arise when communication breaks down. Have you ever watched a TV show and then been angry at characters because they're making a bunch of decisions based on assumptions with one another and just run with those assumptions rather than talking to each other and asking if how they're feeling is real? And I just end up sitting on the couch asking why would you just not talk to each other? Why are you just running in opposite directions, assuming everything the whole way? That's the position that I'm in here. In over a decade of work, I've found that every single situation that could have been seen as problematic was easily resolved by just talking. Why do we not report on some things on PetaPixel sometimes for days after the story breaks? Because we're talking to the company, something that nobody else bothered to do. The Insta360 situation, we're the only people who asked them what happened. What's going on over here, guys? Would you like to comment?
Right.
That to me is bananas that nobody even bothered to ask Insta360 for comment. It doesn't even matter if you believe what they said. Just asking them to say something, give them the opportunity. That is essentially the basis of being a good journalist. You also have to remember that these companies a lot of them are based in Japan. And they are, in fact, in the end, run by the culture of that country. Understanding
100%.
how they work, what they expect, and how they perceive you is so important. If you're seen as rude, that's the main one. Rude. It will be extremely difficult to overcome that. I actually remember one specific instance that got a publication just completely disregarded. And that was difficulty in coordinating a trip, finally getting it done, and then the day before getting on the plane, canceling for reasons that could have been seen before. That was rude. And even an American company would be like, we're just not working with this publication again. That's just, it's very, very rude. I mentioned this earlier, but I wrote it, so I'm going to read it. I also want to point out that Lumix knew Chris and Jordan would not like this camera, and they were invited anyway. Why? Because they know how to navigate the situation to balance being forthright and truthful while also not being rude. That takes understanding, empathy, planning, and open dialogue. If that is too much to ask of someone, then you may find yourself upset by how working with companies goes. That's it.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think it's a really important thing to consider. Yeah, there's a cultural aspect to it. Although, regardless, like, maybe I'm old fashioned, but if you get invited on a thing like this, it's not about being biased by the flashiness and the glitz and glamour. I mean, it's not like that. It's really more like, being grateful, being respectful, being appreciative. Like, thank you for having us out here. This is a great opportunity for us to get interesting content. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And certainly trying to be respectful, trying to be polite, appreciative.
I'll be real with folks. Like,
that's just manners.
The guy who runs this publication, Michael, he had told me before, it's like, you've been on these press trips before, isn't it just kind of like a vacation? And it took me multiple times to explain to him, this is not like that. It may seem like, we're just going out there and we're getting wined and dined. That is not how this goes. I am beat by the end of every single day. And I am so tired that I can't sleep. And I've got so much going in my mind because I have more to do the next day. And I don't actually feel rested.
I don't sleep at all. I don't sleep at all.
Part of it is sleep on press trips. It's a real problem.
Part of it is that Chris does get confused with time zones. Like, his brain doesn't work well.
But also
the amount of stress that you're carrying.
Yeah.
I've seen
there's so many questions. Like,
I've seen you perform better when you're not stressed out, because you've had more preparation and timing. But if you're not prepared, you're a wreck.
You go, well, but I mean, it's like, but that's the due diligence, right? I mean, that's always what we've done. People are like, oh, how can you review a camera in 90 minutes? Like, well, we don't. I mean, first off, we're very good at this. We've been doing it for a long time, right? I mean, you get better at it, right? The questions to ask, the engineers to talk to, I mean, it was funny. It's like with PetaPixel, DPR and stuff, the first place we would always go to is not like hanging out with everybody. It's like, go to the engineers. Okay, this feature that you just talked about, explain this to me. Why is it doing this? Why have you chosen to do this? Like, that's the insight that we want to have, because it is very important. I'd say that the one advice I would give to anybody new starting out is, however you're going to do it, put the work in. Make sure that you're really exploring all the facets of the camera. Like Jaron said, don't be afraid to talk to people. That's why they're there. Ask them questions. There's been so many countless situations where a new camera has a feature, and at first you're like, why the hell would you do that? Like, that seems so backwards or so stupid. And then you talk to the engineers like, oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense. Or they're like, oh no, you can do that. It's just here, and if I just got on camera and said, oh, this camera sucks because I can't do this. And then they're like, yeah, you clearly could. You just have to push this button in this menu option there. You can do it. Like, so it's about doing that due diligence to make sure that what you are saying is as truthful as possible and as accurate as possible. That's what I would say. Work your ass off. Make sure you're really thinking about like all the aspects of the camera that you want to judge. Make sure that it's very clear that it is a first impressions, not a review, and be respectful. I mean, that's about it.
The last thing that I will say about this is I have watched. I think it's YouTube essentially is doing this, and also it doesn't help that because of the way that publications and blogs have worked, we've had to fight for what gets the grabbiest headline. It's basically all the same idea: the grabbiest headline, grabbiest thumbnail. Mm-hmm. And I've seen some people really push that to the point where they will create an outrageous thumbnail or an outrageous title just to get the clicks, and there will be consequences for that if your outrageous title or outrageous thumbnail is incorrect or is just very rude or provides even if the actual content of your video is different than what you've actually said in your title or your thumbnail, that doesn't matter because the title and the thumbnail are all that some people look at. Even on YouTube, I've seen people, and here's like Linus from Linus Tech Tips has actively said he doesn't watch any of the videos. He only reads the comments and reads the title and sees the thumbnail. That to me is baffling, and he's been given crap for that, and he should be because that's wild. But like that's a lot of people. And there is a situation that came up recently. It wasn't on YouTube, it was a different one, where somebody made an outrageous statement about something. And they had a relationship with the company, and the company tried to get in contact with them, be like, "Hey, we can explain what happened here. We know why this happened. Please talk to us." And they effectively said, "I don't take phone calls on these days, and I will only have this conversation on the phone. Your emails will not work." Right. So they just made themselves completely unapproachable. And so the company is just hands in the air, be like, "I guess we just don't work with you anymore because we can't live in this stress bubble like that." For everything that you do, like that you feel stressed about on the like creating the content, imagine how a company feels when they see a real error and can do nothing to fix it. That is because you have to imagine everyone who's doing that, they've got bosses that are breathing down their necks too. Like, why is this not fixed? Because he won't answer his phone because it's a Thursday, like stuff like that. And it's just like, yeah. So remember, there are people on both sides. And as I said, and as Chris backed up, just talk to them. And a lot of good things will happen.
Wow.
Did we do
Jordan, anything else you want to add?
Nope, I'm good.
All right.
Well,
that may have sounded like a main story, but it wasn't.
What? How could anything be mainer?
So we're going to move on to our main story of the week. And we have this week a main story sponsor, Bay Photo. Professional quality prints are the perfect way to elevate your photography. And if you have your own photo business, a great way to boost sales. With Bay Photo as your partner lab, you can easily order and quickly deliver stunning photo products to your clients. Bay Photo uses top quality and sustainable materials and quick turnaround and white label shipping to allow customers to deliver directly to clients with assurance. They even offer optional color correction performed by their professionally trained technicians to ensure the best results from your images. Bay Photo also offers the most reliable customer service available, which they know is important to you as a partner in photography. As a side note, I used to drive by Bay Photo in Santa Cruz like all the time because I used to work, live and work in the Santa Cruz area.
Describe the storefront to me.
It's a big, long store. So like imagine like a mini mall, but it's all one store. And it was across the street or like kitty corner across the street from a grocery store I used to go to and like this bakery called Butter, which was delicious. And so I'd see it all the time. So and I had a couple of colleagues who would use Bay Photo because it was like right there, easy to work with. I don't know if they're still there, but I just remember my experiences with Bay Photo were always.
If you're still near the excellent bakery, please let us know, Bay Photo.
Yeah. Bay Photo's intuitive online ordering platform was custom developed for photographers, including tools to help you sell your prints. One of these features allows you to generate custom wall previews to see and share what your prints will look like before ordering.
That's smart.
Like the IKEA thing where you can see the furniture in your room.
Oh, nice.
Innovation has upheld Bay Photo's success through the transition from film to digital, and today they have the largest selection of products and display options and are known for their customization. Now here's the good part. PetaPixel viewers can save 25% off any one-wall display order with promo code PetaPixel25. This includes metal prints, acrylic prints, frame prints, epic prints, canvas wraps, and so much more. Go to bayphoto.com/petapixel to create your next high-impact display today. Thanks to Bay Photo for sponsoring our main conversation about wildlife photography on medium format. And are you insane? So I guess the reason I bring this up is like medium format is if you talk to any old guard, be like, I'm going to shoot wildlife on medium format. How many of them would look at you like you had lobsters coming out of your ears?
Yeah, I mean it's.
There was, back when we worked at the camera store, there was an 800 mil Pentax. Was it 6.7 or 6.45, Chris? Do you remember?
I think it was, I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe
but this is not completely unheard of.
Hasselblad made some big telephotos as well for their old CFV systems. Like, yeah, they're out there.
Can you imagine like a waist level with a 600, like the little box? Just like, oh no, I panned it the wrong way. Oh, it's backwards, right. Yeah. Yeah, it'll be quite the experience.
for the viewers at home, what really spurned this on is Fujifilm just released a 500 millimeter lens, which gives you about a 400 millimeter equivalent in full frame terms. There's a T-Con you can throw on for another 40%. And that was a very interesting thing. And I have to admit, my first reaction was like, why? Like, why would you do this on this kind of format, right? I would personally never think about using a GFX for wildlife. But at the same time, to Fujifilm's credit, I wouldn't have thought about using a GFX for video before they came out with more advanced video features. And I certainly wouldn't have thought about using it for, sports and action and stuff like that. And so it does show Fujifilm's commitment to making their system by far the most versatile medium format. I don't think there's even any argument there for what it can handle and what kind of genres it can handle. But also, like, if I am a GFX owner, why not have this? Why not have the option, if I want to go do it, that I can try to do it with this kind of lens? And it's a fantastic lens.
Yeah.
Video's out. Everybody
I think it's quite telling that they launched at the same time they announced that this lens was coming. Before it was officially announced, when it was put on the roadmap, was the same time they launched tilt shift lenses. And that's historically been like, look, you're either using a large format camera or a 35 with tilt shift. That's another area that they're like, well, why can't medium format do that? Screw it, let's do it.
Sure.
And I do think that's a lot of their thinking with this lineup. Here's a question, guys. You're working at Fuji. Let's say, for example, the manager of Fujifilm. To go back to my earlier question. Yes, I'm in charge. I call the shots.
You're the tyrannical, autocratic leader of Fujifilm. Okay, go.
Wow. Okay, yes. It's pretty harsh. So are you throwing R&D towards a super tele to start trying to get some of the wildlife shooters, or are you making a leaf shutter portrait lens? Go.
You already know what Chris is going to say.
Yeah, I would want a leaf shutter portrait lens. I don't know why they haven't done that yet. It's crazy. Yeah, that would be my first order of business. But I think the 500 mil is actually cool. I've come around on it. I really have.
I think that the demand for a 500 mil is going to be higher than a leaf shutter portrait lens. I do think that there are as versatile and better for certain. I can hear Blair Bunting yelling at me in my ear right now. I know that there are some folks
we're all mad now
who'd be more into that leaf shutter, but I do think that it's not as appreciated as it maybe should be, especially by those who are younger than us, who may not know the trials and tribulations of really good LED days. So I think Fujifilm is crazy like a fox. They do these things.
You do say that often.
I do say that often. It's like, why would you do this? And then they do it and they're like, well, okay, actually that makes some sense, right? Make no mistake. And here's like, this is also future proofing, right? Because obviously there's gonna be new GFX cameras. They're gonna get better and better. They're gonna focus faster and faster, whatnot. And I said this in the video too, I still personally would not choose a GFX with a 500 mil lens as my go-to wildlife sports and action kit. Okay. I would far prefer a full frame camera with smaller, lighter gear, faster shooting rate.
If you were starting from nothing, right? If you had to make these decisions early.
Put together your dream wildlife photography kit.
Right. Would not be a GFX kit right now, right? No, it would be a full frame kit, something that focuses really effectively, has lots of lenses without being too big. But at the same time, people have made this argument, like, can you shoot wildlife on this GFX with this lens? Absolutely. I mean, we did it, and it's the focusing is pretty effective, and it focuses fast enough. And do you need 30 frames per second? I mean, we've been shooting wildlife on film cameras at 3 frames per second with a motor drive and doing just fine, right? Like, you absolutely can do it. It's not like it always has to be the best tool for the job. So kudos to Fujifilm for actually pushing into this genre and making their cameras more and more versatile. I'm not a GFX owner, but if I was, this is all great. This is gravy. This is like fantastic. Like, I don't feel like I'm pigeonholed into some format that can only do landscape and portrait. Like, why not? That's a wonderful move for their customers. So
I think the decision to go with a 5.6 and keep the price down a little bit really emphasizes that. Like, hey, if you're already invested in GFX and you want to dabble with some telephoto, and not just, we've been saying wildlife a lot too, but
sports,
outdoor sports and stuff like that.
Landscape,
sure, why not use, if it's your only camera system, why not? Absolutely. I do think it makes a lot of sense that way, but I do think you're right, Chris. Like, it's just big sensors, read out slower. That's the limiting factor. The autofocus is always going to be, a generation or two behind the smaller, X
better.
series or something. It will keep improving there.
Yeah.
You're right over there. Would you kick?
I kicked a something glass. It didn't break, so we're okay.
All right. So for this segment, I'm going to ask 6 questions, and I want you to answer them as truthfully as you can.
Oh no. Okay.
So for medium format wildlife photography, what does it outperform?
The medium format?
Yeah. What does it better than?
Identical camera settings, it's going to give you 2/3 of a stop, better low light performance, NDR than a full frame sensor. All settings being directly paired up.
Yeah,
equal and equivalent.
A lot of people will say that distinct
settings. Like if you're shooting, like how well does it do autofocus? How well is it doing the job of wildlife photography? What types of cameras is it better than right now?
Oh,
is what I'm trying to say.
Nothing.
It's not better than any APS-C equipped with the same type of tracking and all the lenses you can get for it. It's not better than anything.
I mean, it depends.
Frame.
It's like Fujifilm's using their advanced algorithms on this camera. Absolutely. So, it should focus very similarly to their other APS-C cameras. There's better focusing cameras out there, I still think. I mean, Canon have fantastic animal detect. Nikon do a good job. Sony, of course, with their tracking is fantastic. So, it's certainly competitive. I don't think it outperforms autofocus-wise any of the other products out there on the market.
I think really there's a direct comparable, which is kind of cool, is we recently looked at the Nikkor 400mm f4.5, which is what this is basically exactly equivalent to. It's kind of nuts.
Lens, yeah.
And there you're getting, Nikon's, I'll just say it, like better autofocus on that, much higher burst rates. And I mentioned like the 2/3 of a stop advantage on the larger sensor there. Well, that lens is exactly 2/3 of a stop brighter. So that's going to shift that difference in that regard as well. So that just keeps going back to what Chris said earlier. And you touched on there, Jaron, is just like, for the exact same setup, you can get a more capable full frame system,
full frame camera.
So
you are going to get a lot of megapixels.
That's true as well. Absolutely.
So
100
that's
megapixels.
Actually the next question is, what are its strengths? And you've already mentioned it, Jordan. You've got the megapixels are more crisp, and then Jordan, you were about to say a couple of other things too that it does.
Well, dynamic range is excellent.
Dynamic range is better.
Yeah, we've long said that this 100 megapixel sensor makes some of the best images that you will get on a technical level. I mean, it's fantastic.
But I'm asking specifically, like, okay, let's go down the line. Is it better than or worse than an A6700 with an equivalent lens?
Per picture, absolutely it is. Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay.
Yeah, it's better.
Then I'd move up a little bit more. Okay, so then what about a Lumix G9 II with an equivalent lens? Is your experience going to be better or worse? Okay, so it's better.
Yeah.
So it outperforms that. That's what I meant. What is it outperforming? What can it do better than something already on the market right now? Okay, how about another one? S5 IIX with an equivalent lens. You got to put a 500 on there from Sigma. Is it going to be better than that?
But there's so many aspects to what's going to be better. I mean, for what?
For getting a sharp, good picture of a bird in flight, a BILF as you call them, Chris.
I do still.
You have these. They're on a table.
Here's the thing.
Your job is to get a sharp picture of a bird.
I love BILFs, and I want to get a BILF in flight. I would far prefer. I would far prefer shooting that bird I'd like to photograph with something that's going to have a higher burst rate, better autofocus. I'd probably sacrifice image quality to get more depth of field. And so in that regard, I'm choosing maybe worse image quality overall for a higher hit rate, better success for that shot, knowing that the image quality is still going to be perfectly acceptable. So I would still probably take a smaller format over the Fujifilm to do that kind of work.
Yeah,
not just for raw image quality. I mean, you could have the best image quality if the bird's not in focus or you don't have the shot you like at the timing.
That's what I'm saying. So you think this is less capable of getting that photo, the perfectly sharp photo, than a G9 II with the lens?
Yes.
You think so? The G9 II is better at that.
If you want to look at it with percentages, yes. But if you did get a shot on the Fujifilm perfectly in focus at the right timing without those advantages, it would be a fantastic image, right? So,
okay. Maybe that wasn't a fair question, but I made you answer it anyway.
Yeah, it's too complicated.
So that does go against what does it underperform against? You've already mentioned that. There's a couple cameras that you would say that if it comes to hit rate and accuracy on that hit rate, you're in like the number of pictures you're going to get. There's multiple cameras that do better. So
it's slower, and the autofocus is still a little bit behind.
And so that's
we should specify this is 100% a camera limitation as well. right?
Yeah.
I want to make sure that's clear.
Yeah,
because that lens is great.
Wildlife
I get you.
photography on medium format, not just this lens. This lens is fantastic. It's the whole system. So in addition, so you've already mentioned its weaknesses. So these are the 4 questions done. What does it outperform? What are its strengths? What does it underperform? What are its weaknesses? What are the best lenses right now for medium format wildlife photography? In addition,
leaf shutter portrait lenses. Oh wait, they don't exist.
So besides this new lens, are there any others out there that you would say this is a good one
for wildlife specifically?
Medium format wildlife photography.
I mean, the macro is nice. I would absolutely want that.
Which one's that?
The 120.
Yeah, the 120 macro. It's very good. I believe
it's 120. Sharp. I'll be corrected immediately, swiftly.
Yeah, probably. The 500 is excellent. I mean, the only other option really would be the 250, which would be nice for sports and action work.
But a 200 mil equivalent, I mean, that's not a classic wildlife focal length. Like that's the thing. They're filling out the lines that'll be used more for landscape and portrait because that's medium format's wheelhouse. Now that they've got that fleshed out a little bit, that's why we're seeing this. But yeah, I mean, there's also the 1:3 zoom, I believe. Oh no, that's not right. It's a 1:2. No. So yeah, no,
they don't make anything that long.
This is really your only wildlife.
That's why this 500 is so cool, because they really haven't gone beyond the portrait telephoto range for this GFX. So this is the first lens that really starts to do it. And a lot of people say 400 mil is not exactly that great for wildlife. That's not a false statement. And with the T-Con, you're pushing 550-ish, but again, it's not. You're losing light, although it is very sharp. So, but it's getting us there, right?
You should mention that's 35 equivalent, 550-ish, right? It's a 700.
Yes, 550 in 35 mil full frame terms.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Final question. How confident are you that this will get better to do? Like medium
much better.
And by how much?
By as much as you would need it to. I mean, really the limitation is going to be the readout speed of the sensor, unlocking. What the GFX would have a long way to go compared to a smaller sensor like the full frames we're seeing is it has a long way to go before the sensors can read out fast enough that you can reliably do electronic shutter photography only without rolling shutter issues, thus unlocking a lot of the fast burst rates that we're seeing a lot of these compact cameras do. Regardless too, I mean, the mechanical shutter speeds is usually be faster on smaller cameras as well, because it's easier to do that with a smaller sensor plane. So yeah, it's going to take a long time, I think, before the sensors can read out fast enough to really compete that way. But that's the direction it's going. They're getting faster and faster.
Yep, I agree. I think it's going to be sensor readout. Even outside of fully electronic shutter, I mean, it's just going to have to be able to read out fast enough. Those mechanical shutters start clickety-clacking a little bit faster without dropping the bit depth as well. Because that's the other thing is we don't want to suddenly have, the advantages of full frame image quality except for detail thrown away because we've decided we want to shoot. Because
then you're not getting the advantage.
That has to get rectified as well.
Yeah.
So let's say it did get as good as like the baseline you'd require. Would you see yourself doing this more often? Would you be like recommend? Let's say it was fast. The autofocus was just as reliable. It shot fast enough. We don't need to shoot 20 frames per second. We could shoot like 12 or 14 or whatever. And like it was reliable and did a good job. Would you be like, yeah, this is actually viable? And
hell yeah.
Sure. I mean, let's assume that they autofocus the same and they had fast burst rates and everything was hunky-dory when it came to the actual physical aspect of getting an animal in flight or moving or whatever in focus sharp, okay? Assuming it gets to that point, then you're right back to the same question that we have when looking at full frame versus medium format for landscape, right? Which isn't technically demanding as far as autofocus and shooting speeds go. So then you're saying, well, is 60 megapixels enough with this dynamic range, or do I want 100 megapixels with that extra 2/3 of a stop dynamic range? I mean, that will be right back to that same question. And so I guess if I was going to look at it to future Chris would say the same thing he's always said, which is, the extra image quality isn't that big a deal for me personally. I mean, great, sure, nice to have. It's not that big a deal for me personally. I'd probably still prefer the smaller bodies of the full frame cameras and all the lenses being a little bit smaller stuff too, because I'm happy with the image quality I'm getting out of them. But what it certainly means is that anybody that has a GFX format going forward has a lot of potential to be able to have basically genre-less photography on their medium format camera. And I think that's cool.
Cool. All right, I'm done grilling you.
All right.
That was it.
Did we answer any of those questions, Jaron, just quickly? Okay,
I mean,
good.
Chris really didn't like answering some of them, but he did do
Well,
it.
you know,
They're hard questions, and a lot of them are ambiguous, and I knew that. But
Yeah.
that's the point here. I got to make you think. So there
That's
you go.
good.
If anyone
That's
has any
good.
other questions about medium format wildlife photography that Chris may or may not answer, put them in the comment section below.
I think I answered them perfectly.
What have you guys
You
been
wanted
up to?
yes or no answers, and I give you way more info.
What have you guys been up to?
I've been drinking Coca-Cola, Coke Zero. It's all the flavor with none of the calories. I find that gives me the caffeine boost that I need as creator to do this podcast properly. This is the drink choice of professionals in the photo industry. Coca-Cola.
Why are you doing
Give
that?
it a shot today.
I want to be cut in. I want to be cut in, Chris. So help me God.
Because sponsorship is an important part of our business. Like it or not, we all have to get paid. And we can sponsor products without being unbiased to our actual
This just feels like that
format.
Wayne's World section where he's like, we never sponsored. Brought to you by Doritos.
Yeah, exactly. Man, these Doritos are so good.
Okay, well, that wasn't a real answer. How about you, Jordan?
I went to Portland, which was really cool. I had a great time, actually.
We both did. You didn't go. We both did.
Yeah, but he asked me. You used your turn, Chris, with your Coca-Cola.
What? No, that was a sponsored ad. That's not.
It was not. Don't listen to him.
I had a great Coca-Cola.
Had a great time there. When I got back, I actually took like a day off, which was amazing. And I had the most like two ends of the spectrum kind of day off. So I woke up, finished Metroid Prime with my kid. This gives you an idea how rarely I play video games. I think I mentioned I got that like 6 months ago, and I looked at like total completion time, and it was 17 hours. So it's like
not even that much time. Wow,
not much time at all. Went right from that to my wife picked me up a live Miles Davis record on vinyl that I had not listened to, and read a book about David O. Selznick, the director of Gone with the Wind. And I had the most old man afternoon I've ever had. So that was perfect. Just like start youthful activity. And that, although that game is, I guess, 20 years old, but I did it with my son. So that still counts to old manning. And I got to say, on both sides, I recommend them.
I have a similar thing. I just got Baldur's Gate 3 because it was finally on sale.
You and Jaron were talking about that.
And I have no idea when I'm going to finish it because that game will not be completed in 17 hours.
No,
that's not even
that's not even Act 1.
No, it's not even Act 1. So
that's still character
I don't know.
creation.
If I live long enough before having a heart attack to finish the game, great. But, you know, I will say this about BG3, which is interesting. I consider myself a good person. I know you guys don't agree. But I always try to play, and I've always enjoyed playing like the good Paragon.
I'm glad that came up on the ethics episode.
Yes.
That's great.
Yeah.
Helping, you know, I like to help people out. I like to be the good guy. I like to do the good things. BG3 is actually the first game I've played, role-playing game, where I'm like, maybe it'd be fun to do an evil playthrough.
You gonna go Dark Urge?
I don't know. Oh, I've already started playing, right? I'm into Act 1.
You'd have to create
but
the character as Dark Urge from the very beginning.
I don't need to do Dark Urge, but do I take like companions that are more evil? Do I make more evil choices? Do I push the storyline to more evil directions? I don't know. I might. I'm actually really waffling.
I don't enjoy doing that personally. I don't have fun.
What if Chris loves it?
Me
and
neither.
It changes how
don't.
he interacts with everyone else in his real world life. He's just like, I got a taste of the evil, and I'm just going to embrace. I'm going to roll with that every morning now. Well, I'm concerned, frankly, Jaron.
What have you been up to, Jaron?
All right, so I just got reminded that I need to show this because so last week the R5 that I was recording me on, all three of us forgot that has recording limits of exactly 30 minutes. So that's why I was being disappointed faced for most of that podcast. So I didn't actually get to visibly take Chris's gift that he brought me from Japan.
Yes.
So I forgot to get it off my shelf. I'll go get it right now. Hold on.
Okay. All right.
Also, we had a really lovely dinner at Jaron's. He did like a sous vide cut of, it was like a prime rib almost. But then he did it with wasabi, which is now exactly how I'm going to do it from now on. I'm all about the wasabi.
You talking about the food I made?
Yeah,
the
food was good.
Yeah,
the sous vide meat was good.
So
the wasabi was excellent.
What Chris brought me was this.
There you go. Look at that little guy.
This is Gundam Calibarn, and it's a small version.
It's Chibi Calibarn.
Yeah, it's a little chibi. It's a small version of this, which is this is a high grade version of it. So, fun and frustrating to build because
Jaron sent me.
There's no instructions.
Video of this. Jared sent me a video of this guy doing a Gundam, and he bought like all these pencils, and then he did like really fine like roughing work on all the edges.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn, man.
The
I'd
other
stick
thing
World
I
War
did,
II planes, but that's cool.
yeah, Chris also told me I need to go acquire some pencils now so that I can do it, and I'm tempted to.
Yeah.
The other thing that I did is I rebuilt the steps on my front porch leading up to my house, which had gotten the previous person who built them, I don't know, probably over a decade ago. They have long since rotted out.
You did that quick.
So
Yeah, we left Jaren's house at night, and he was adamant. He's like, "Watch that step, watch it." And it's like we've been warned once. It's like just make sure. I mean, it's
you know, when someone says I'm going to fix it, that means like I don't know, 3 months from now is.
I immediately was like, "Sure, Jaren," and then it's like a couple
like 3
days later. Like,
look,
I did it.
Stairs.
Yeah, I used boards that are twice as thick as the ones that were there before, so these should last even longer. They just now need to be primed and painted, and then they'll be done. So that was it. All right, I'm going to go put my Gundam away, and then we can move on to...
You have to put it away?
Well, I don't like leaving the... Do you guys care? It's open. Okay.
No one cares.
It's open. I don't know. I care. All right. So
they're not going to fly away as much as you want them
I
to.
didn't even think about dust. Jaren, go. For the love of God, cover those things up.
Fine. The heater's not
comments.
There's nothing moving around. Okay, we're going to move on to tech support. We're going to get through as many of these as we can. We may not get through them all. But the first one is a comment from YouTube from Michael Paz, who said, on the JPEG and RAW storage topic, given the processing power of current cameras and computers, is there still an advantage to shooting uncompressed RAW, both for photo and video? Or should I immediately find the option for lossless compression to save storage and my sanity?
Yes.
So I'll do the photo one quick because the video is a bit more complicated. As far as photo goes, lossless compressed is the way to go. You'll save a lot of space. The image quality loss is negligible. You won't notice it. Do lossless compressed. But video is maybe a little bit different. Jordan?
Same rules apply there. Like if you are going over to like your raw video is inherently going to be a lossless compressed. No one's doing a lossless raw unless you can find an old Blackmagic pocket camera. But sorry, what was the second half of that, Jared?
Should I immediately find the option for lossless compression to save storage and my sanity?
No, absolutely. Like I think that's specifically on the photo side. We did some tests at DP Review. We saw no quality difference. If your camera has a lossy option, that's where you might get a dynamic range penalty.
Cool. The next one is a question from Sean from Australia. It's a speak pipe, and it's an audio question we may have answered already, but I'm going to have us answer it again. Here we go. Let's listen in.
Hey, Chris, Jordan, and Jaren. This is Sean from Australia. I've got a question about audio for you. What is your process for post-processing for audio? So after you get it off the camera and put it into your editing software, what kind of things do you do to the audio? I've tried some different things myself and I've hit some brick walls. I'm just wondering if you could help out with that. Thanks. Also, love the podcast. Keep up the great work.
Yeah, I feel like we've touched on one, at the very least, quite similar to this. But my basic process is I do tend to record audio just a little bit low when we're in the field just to protect. Because Chris and I can sometimes unpredictably start shouting, as you may have experienced if you've listened to this podcast for any length of time. After that, I do within Final Cut just use curves, basically to treat it. So just keyframe my audio up and down based on where everyone's at. So it's like at a medium, peaking at 0 decibels, basically. After that, I have now started using Audacity to do a final compression. So that's what I use for my compression now. I think we've done this before in an article, Jaren. We could just chuck this in on the PetaPixel article about this podcast, and I can just show you my settings for... Yeah, I can send it to you again. I use it all the time. That just kind of optimizes it for YouTube. So I use a custom compressor and a custom, I believe it's called volume. Yeah, loudness limiter that we use. And I can throw that up. It just kind of gives you optimum levels. The big thing there is I don't want an ad that plays mid-episode. Those are all cranked right up. It's like cable TV. So I want our videos to be a similar volume to the ad so it doesn't blow your headphones off when you hit an ad during our episode. So that's why we've optimized it that way.
I also use Audacity to...
it's free!
Yeah, it's free. The compressor works really, really well.
It's insanely good.
If you listen to like the first 2 episodes of this podcast, they sound horrible. That was before we used Audacity, and then we switched to Audacity, and suddenly we sound amazing. So yeah, definitely cannot recommend that app enough.
Yeah, I've stopped doing any of my compression within the editing process now. I just use that to pin my levels and let Audacity do what it's good at.
Yep. Okay. Next one is a question from Owen, also from SpeakPipe. Let's listen in.
Hi, guys. A photo shooting amateur and very much a video beginner here, looking to understand how best to capture video across a few different devices as my family and I embark on a sabbatical that's going to take us through parts of Europe, Africa, and South America. And really the focus of the trip is wildlife, adventure, ecology. And so I'm going to be bringing along my Sony a6700, my GoPro 12, and my iPhone 15 Pro. And if there are some easy settings that I can put on to make a final project really easy to put together on the other end, I certainly would appreciate it. This will be for a keepsake for my family, to remember what we did, and to share with those of my family members who want to see it, which may be very few. Thanks for all the energy and time you put into the show, and appreciate your advice.
I do have thoughts on that. That's certainly something that we struggle. It's funny because we used multiple camera setups for the podcast last week. So it's a good thing we didn't have the wide, or matching it would be a real issue. It's like, thank goodness we all have totally different backgrounds and everything, so we could pull that off. And on one hand, you do have the advantage that all of those are going to give you quite different looks. This is something we see in filmmaking all the time. You know, when they, like, a great example would be Breaking Bad. They'd use GoPros all the time, and the color didn't match at all compared to shooting like motion picture film on 35 that they did for the rest of it. But because it was a different type of shot, you can get away with that. So I wouldn't be as concerned about that. But if you do really want to, you know, shoot like the same angle with your 6700 for shallow depth of field, normal wide on your phone, and the ultra wide on the GoPro, there's basically two things. I would say they all have like a flatter profile built into them. And that's going to make it pretty easy just to tweak colors a little bit and kind of match them up. But it will require a bit of work. And you said you wanted it as easy as possible. So I checked out, I just wanted to make sure it was still available. There's a software called Cinematch, which is made by the same guys who do all the film emulation. Wait, what is their name again? Film Convert, sorry. But Cinematch is great because it is made specifically for camera matching. That's its only purpose. So you choose which one you like. Let's say that your main look is a 6700. You can match all the cameras to it. The software does it for you. You just have to make sure you shoot log with all of those cameras beforehand, and then matching it is seamless. But this is an investment. I looked and it's going for $120 US. So not cheap. But, you know, it might be worth it for your time if you want everything color matched perfectly.
Plus, you have to shoot log for everything, which is another complication for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But those would be my two recommendations.
All right. Next one is an email from Effie. F.A.? What do you think? It's a Turkish name. I don't know how to say it correctly. But
I'm going to go F.A.
But he's a Turkish fan.
A Turkish fan of yours. The announcement of the Panasonic Lumix S9 and it missing a mechanical shutter got me thinking. Do you think we will ever see a leaf shutter lens in the L mount to mitigate rolling shutter effects? Is that even possible or meaningful, especially with the development of full-frame global shutter sensors? If I believe Leica S medium format cameras previously offered both leaf and non-leaf shutter lenses for the same bodies, and I thought leaf shutter lenses could also bring a new breath of life to Sigma FP cameras as well. Many thanks.
I think we're at a point where the sensors can get fast enough as the prices come down on them. You know, like the generation of sensors we have now are going to be much more affordable in the years to come. That we could get down to just being able to use electronic shutter only for most of that stuff. You know, in the case of the S9, it's not just the fact that we've got no mechanical shutter, but also that there's no hot shoe. This camera is not intended to be used with flashes in any way, shape, or form. I mean, so a leaf shutter wouldn't really have an advantage there either. So no, you'd have to. Yeah, we need faster scanning sensors. I'm fine with electronic only. The scan just has to be quick, right? So I don't think that would be a big benefit.
I think look, we've actually talked to manufacturers about this, and they've said, look, if we make a leaf shutter lens, it has to recoup the R&D because we can see how the direction things are going. It's going to have a few years where that's going to be very useful, where sensors aren't reading out and we're limited by the mechanical shutter in some cases, like the focal plane shutter. So it would need, let's say in 5 years, we're suddenly starting to see electronic shutters fast enough that you don't need to use, a regular lens for that, then suddenly the desire for all those leaf shutter lenses goes away because it's just dependent on sync speed. So it would make sense, but they'd have to sell a lot of them very quick. And I don't know if they can do that with just within the L mount. And we haven't seen Sony support leaf shutter lenses on their platform. So I'm skeptical, would be my end result. But yes, it would make the FPL suddenly much more functional cameras.
And like, I guess another question that makes me think is like, and maybe this is an old man statement, but do younger creators even want to use flash? I honestly don't know the answer to that question, right? Like that's something
why I was saying earlier, the leaf shutter thing is probably not a smart business move.
No, it's not a smart business move. But it's like, I love flash. It's easier than ever before to use it. But at the same time, like, I don't know, do new creators even want to use flash?
It's up to you to prove to them that they should, Chris. Get out.
I try my best.
I remember at the camera store, this was such a huge thing, is trying to, like, people were so scared of flash, and they'd be like, I would like 1600 watts of LED constant light, because then I can pre-visualize my shot. And it's like, why don't you just buy a $300 strobe and take a class, because it is very, very powerful.
Video.
Yeah.
If I can do it, anybody can do it. Yeah. If I can do it, anybody can do it.
FA actually had a follow-up question. They said they sent a SpeakPipe message around November, but I lost it, which is entirely possible. I'm not infallible. So the question was, my previous SpeakPipe was about whether a shotgun microphone like the Sennheiser MKE 400 would be suitable for outdoor video recordings as well as indoor video calls. He wants to use it with a Z6 and it doesn't have the best preamps, and he has a very loud PC. Like yours, Chris. He says, Chris's. No. I don't know. Is it as loud?
That's a terrifying benchmark.
Ugh. Yeah. He also says, I really hope to see a new Wood and Nichols episode soon.
Oh, I know.
No. So is that?
No, I know. No, I would love to do another Wood Nichols. Yeah. Yeah, I would love to.
We'll get there.
Shotguns are pretty directional, right?
Yeah, depending on the unit, the MKE 400 is actually quite a directional microphone.
Quite directional.
I do want to say,
recording.
We see this constantly as everybody looks at it like it's a telephoto lens. It's not. The closer you are to a microphone, the better it's going to sound. So even if you've got a directional shotgun, that just means it's going to reject more noise from the things that it's not pointed at. But get as close to it as possible. That's how you're going to assure yourself the best quality. I think they work well as a webcam. Again, get nice and close to it. Make sure there's no sound behind you. That's something a lot of people forget. No, the 400's a little shorty.
Mount?
It's a cutie pie. Yeah.
So back when Ted and I did the last podcast, the Art of Photography off camera, Ted's audio was actually through a shotgun mic like that. So if you want to hear,
it could be fantastic.
That sounds like, go listen to an old episode of the Art of Photography off camera and listen for Ted's voice.
An old one that I'm on, and then it'll be a smooth transition from this. You've got a halfway point host-wise. No, it's got to be one of the 2 or 3 I was on. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to do one more tech support. This one is from Rob from Boulder, Colorado. Hi, guys. Love your podcast. I have a solution to that person that commented in the last show that they were trying to figure out if to take RAW, JPEG, or JPEG plus RAW with the limitation of their Apple ProRes Photos system. Apple Photos, not ProRes, limitations of their Apple Photos system. Gosh, I can't see right now. Apple Photos might not be a good cataloging system, but it does Wait, oh my gosh, I'm screwing up this very badly.
Jared's having a hard time.
Apple might be a good cataloging system, but it does a terrible job with RAW plus JPEG. It stacks the pictures and you cannot unstack them to view them side by side. And Apple also allows you to see the RAW file, but does not really process them correctly. And when you export them, they look terrible. I also struggled with this for some time. My solution, I purchased DxO Photolab and take pictures in RAW plus JPEG, and then I import them from the camera into Photolab, which displays them side by side. If the photo is just ordinary, I delete the RAW file. If I want to edit it quite a bit, I delete the JPEG. When I'm done, I export all the photos to Apple Photos as JPEGs. I store the RAWs on my hard drive outside of the Photos library. It's a bit extra work, but once you get that workflow set up, it works great. So
that's a great workflow. Nice job.
Yeah, it's
great suggestion.
It's true. I do struggle with this as well in the Apple ecosystem. I don't like the way it handles RAW and JPEG, and I just wish it would do what PC does, and I don't know what to do about that. So I might try out your suggestion there, Rob.
I just use Bridge, and it's really easy to see the.
Might use Bridge too. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We're going to get to Never Read the Comments, the section where we make sure to read every comment, and I've got quite a few fair bit here. So from the last podcast, Tim DeKuyk?
Yes, nailed it.
That's definitely not correct.
Dick will vouch for me. He said you did a great job.
No, my highlight every time is Jaron looking uncomfortable while Chris is telling naughty jokes and remarks. And that is followed by Stephen Quirkle, who says Jaron definitely looks visibly annoyed with Chris. And I think I caught some knowing looks between Chris and Jordan. Jaron probably just wanted to get through the show and get his dining room back, or didn't want to offend the sponsor, or just wanted to keep things from going too far off the rails, which is fair. I wanted to address this. I'm not annoyed with Chris. I'm playing a character sometimes, and my character is baffled by Chris's outlandish statements.
The man trying to hold the show together. Really, the Kermit from the Muppets.
Somebody has to do it, otherwise it will go off the rails.
So the correct answer of all those things you suggested is, I just want to keep things from going too far off the rails. That is actually accurate. Trying to like guide Chris, like herding a cat, trying to guide him back, towards the barn.
If anyone can Photoshop Kermit Jaron with Chris and I as other more distracting Muppets, I think that would be great.
Where he just shakes his head.
Get to work on that. Yeah, just like his arm flail. Like, we need to get back onto the subject that we're supposedly talking about. I think that'd be great.
Yawning Marmot said, "Oh no, that backstabbing R5 got Jaron." I just thought that was funny. Yeah,
damn you R5, damn straight.
We thought we were done talking about it, but no, we're back talking about record limits on R5s again.
Who knew that something we complained about years ago would come back to bite us in the butt, right?
All right, the last group of comments is from the S9 video. So SHBDHD, which is not to be confused with MKBHD, which I think is kind of funny. There is a lot to ponder with this new you get it, Chris?
There were a few of those. Yeah,
I don't get it. What's in yes, this does feature LUTs.
The amount of restraint it took not to put a LUT joke in the name of the video was staggering. Let me tell you.
D Zeng says, "I'm not the target audience for the S9, but I can watch Chris and Jordan review a slice of bread for 15 minutes."
Let's do it next week.
As soon as we get a bread sponsor, we're on it, because we're all about unbiased bread reviews from companies that sponsor us.
That wouldn't be a review, Chris. That would be sponsored content.
That would be sponsored content.
No, I break the rules for bread.
Scott Tucker says, "This camera proves for the umpteenth time that companies have no clue what we want from this market segment." What do you guys think of that statement?
I don't agree. I think that it's targeting a very specific market segment that might not be us. And I'm going to include Scott in that, right? It's like, it's a very basic bare bones camera, unfortunately. And so I would never rely on it as like a regular workhorse kind of camera at all. But at the same time, if you treat it as a sort of like analogish walk around town experience where, I don't know if I would even shoot RAW on this camera. I would almost just put this camera into JPEG mode only, use wacky LUTs, and go around and just shoot it like from the hip street camera. And in that regard, it's actually kind of fun. But I mean, no, I personally would not purchase this camera. But there's possibly a market segment that will. And I think the important thing about this camera is also not so much this camera, unfortunately, but the new LUT system that Panasonic is trying to push, because we're going to see that in a lot of cameras going forward. So understanding that whole workflow is very important going forward as a Panasonic user.
Here, let me take a crack at this, because we both had one egregious thing, I think, when they gave us the rundown on this that drove us crazy. So let's say they bump the price $100, okay? And now we have a first curtain mechanical shutter and a headphone jack through USB dongle in it. Is this suddenly a vastly more appealing camera to have a compact recording and street photography option?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I'm being fair, the flicker wasn't that bad. Like it does happen, and it's unfortunate.
You're also in Japan, the land of perfect light sources everywhere you go.
You're right.
I'd like to take it to a supermarket.
we did find some rough spots. So yes, like we even seen that EFC would be a great option on this camera. Even though I would still be like, why can't I just have a full mechanical shutter? I get it.
We're always going to want more. That's why we're the way
jack,
we are.
Of course, headphone jack's a big deal too. I could live with the two control dials. Otherwise, the handling wasn't that bad. and the autofocus worked okay. So
it's that close to a camera. I think we could find a much larger market for it.
Yeah,
if those
and
two
that's
things
why
were
our
addressed.
complaint really was how bare bones this camera is.
That lens you got on there though, Chris.
Yeah, it's the lens cap lens, the 26mm f8. Yeah,
I don't like that lens.
I took a few shots with it. I mean, if you get things in focus, it's all right. But again, for the
Put
price,
that on the box.
Yeah.
Okay.
You get it in focus, all right.
JM,
I wouldn't buy it for $200 personally.
JM-IT7DB. Jordan really nailed this video. Shooting handheld with such a small camera, the video looks excellent regardless of gear. Good job, Jordan.
You know what looks excellent? Japan. So big ups.
But also
hundreds of years of incredible architecture and gardening and just cultural differences that have made it such a beautiful place.
You're being humble. You really did do a very good job.
You did do a good job. But at the same time, too, from a technical standpoint, this camera is actually quite good handheld because Panasonic's IBIS is very effective.
Yeah.
And that's in here. Like, that's one thing they didn't hold back on this camera. And the video quality is excellent, other than the really annoying record limit times. But for YouTube shooting, you're never really going to push those record limits anyways in a take. So those limitations don't really affect you in that situation. Yeah. And the color science is good.
My heart was always slightly a flutter because I wasn't actually monitoring what was going into the camera. So there's a level of terror involved in it.
Yes,
but in terms of capturing pretty images, it's very capable.
Yeah, no problem there.
Last one from Rayma888S. So good to see you guys still doing videos. Was sad when I heard they closed down PetaPixel. Glad you guys are back. Wishing you all the best.
PetaPixel's good, right? What does he know that we don't know, Jared?
I put this in here because I was like, I am so confused. You're watching this on PetaPixel. They are gainfully employed.
Rhyme is referring obviously to DP review.
Yeah, that's why I was just laughing.
Not PetaPixel. But people still come up to us on the street like, hey, camera store guys or DP review guys. So
the PetaPixel one happened recently though, right?
Jaron was there for it the first time. Someone's just walked up like, hey, PetaPixel. And it's like, it's working.
It only took a year, but it's happening.
But it can be confusing. I mean, yes, I get it.
We still get Hey Camera Store more than anything else. So it's going to take a while to transition this, I think.
That's going to do it for us this week. Hopefully we have addressed everything that you wanted them to address. I know it was a topic that you wanted to hear. And then, if you've got more questions, put them in below the like button, below the description. We'll read those. You can send us speak pipes and emails. I will do my best to look at new speak pipes if they are specifically related to this YouTube situation. I have a significant backlog right now of not only the ones that I have set up for future episodes, but also ones that are sitting on my email that I haven't even downloaded yet. So I need to do that, and then I'm going to listen to every speak pipe this week. And if it's related,
an important
to this
conversation to have.
So
it's an important conversation to have, and it's important that the viewers understand the background as much as possible going through this. Yeah.
So I will go through the extra effort to make sure that happens.
Nice.
Okay, that's it. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Thanks to our sponsor, OM System, for sponsoring the episode. Thanks to Bay Photo for sponsoring the main story. And we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.